What's up, Blue and Silver Nation? Take a deep breath, because what went down in Kansas City is still stuck in every fan's throat. It was one of those games that drains your patience, your heart, and even your voice. A loss that hurts, not just because of the scoreboard, but because of how it happened. And honestly, it's getting hard to ignore what we all saw last night. We can talk about execution, individual mistakes, even game conditions, but what about the offensive play calling? At some point, fans just can't take seeing the same short passes, the predictable screenplays, and those inside runs that go absolutely nowhere. And on the other side of the ball, the defense looked more worried about stopping the deep shots than actually bringing pressure. They left the middle of the field wide open, gave up easy yards, and, once again, didn't record a single sack. But it's in moments like this that we show who we really are. Because Lions fans don't run from frustration. We face it, question it, and demand better, because we believe. So tell me, my friends, drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think about that performance, and what has to change? Because today it's a real conversation. No filters, no sugarcoating, just fan to fan. Now, let's talk about what's really going on with this Detroit offense and defense. What an absolute gut punch in Kansas City. The kind of loss that drains you not just emotionally but physically. And for the fans who traveled nearly 750 miles, it feels like a double blow. You spend hundreds of dollars, take a 10-hour drive, and what do you get? A Detroit Lions team that didn't play its brand of football. This wasn't about bad luck or bad weather. This was about getting outworked and outplayed when it mattered most. Sure, the Lions went into Arrowhead down their two starting cornerbacks and facing Patrick Mahomes, plus, let's be honest, the usual Kansas City-friendly officiating. But even with all that, the expectation was to compete at the Lions level. Dan Campbell never makes excuses, and as fans, neither should we. What made this loss sting so much wasn't just the scoreboard, but the way Detroit fell flat in the moments that define contenders. They managed to sack Mahomes 3 times, and still, it didn't feel like they ever really made him uncomfortable. Hutchinson once again was the only true force up front, the lone consistent disruptor on that defensive line. Through 6 games, not a single Lions defensive tackle has a sack. 0. DJ Reader, Tyreek Williams, Roy Lopez, the middle of that line has been silent. And when you go up against quarterbacks like Mahomes or Josh Allen, that silence in the interior is the difference between a playoff run and another heartbreak. The Lions were supposed to hang their hat on trench dominance, but right now, they're relying on Hutchinson to do it all.
Even when Quaid Muhammad finally showed up with a late sack, it came in garbage time, the kind of stat that looks good on paper but doesn't change the game. Detroit needs players who can make those plays when the clock matters, not after the outcome's already decided. That's what separates contenders from teams that just hang around. The numbers tell the story. Kansas City outgained Detroit 355 to 297, and while the Lions held their own on third downs, 5 for 11 versus the Chiefs 4 for 10, the gap showed up everywhere else. The Chiefs ran 9 more plays, had 26 first downs to Detroit's 18, and got bailed out by 0 penalties. That's right, 0. Not one accepted penalty against the Chiefs all game. Meanwhile, the Lions got hit 4 times. You can scream conspiracy all you want, but at the end of the day, the Lions have to be good enough to beat the refs too. The Jacksonville Jaguars did it earlier this year, on the road. So yes, it's unfair, but that's life in the NFL when you're not the golden team. Still, Jared Goff gave Detroit a chance. Another clean game, no interceptions, nearly identical completion numbers to Mahomes, 23 of 29 compared to 22 of 30, and a touchdown that was wiped out by what looked like a phantom call. The kind that makes you shake your head and think, here we go again. But Goff stayed composed. He led that opening drive that chewed up almost 10 minutes of clock, only to walk away with a field goal after a called-back touchdown. That's the kind of drive that should set the tone, but instead, it felt like wasted momentum. The Chiefs came back down and punched it in. And once again, Detroit found itself playing catch-up in a game it could have controlled. Dan Campbell went for it on 4th down, twice, and came up empty. That's who he is, aggressive, fearless, the kind of coach who lives and dies by his convictions. And you can't fault him for sticking to that identity. But the margins are razor thin. A drop pass by Amon-Ra St. Brown on a critical 4th down, the kind he almost never misses, summed up the night perfectly. When your surest hands fail you, it's not your night. But even through all that, the Lions still had their chances. Mahomes fumbled on a strip sack by Hutchinson, and Detroit couldn't recover. That single moment could have flipped the script, changed everything. Instead, it turned into another what-if. The defense, once known for its toughness in the red zone and its ability to shut down third downs, has lost that edge. Last season, that unit was the backbone of a 12-5 campaign. Now, They're giving up 4 out of 6 red zone trips for touchdowns. That's the difference between being a powerhouse and a pretender. This loss, though, is more than just a bad night in Arrowhead. It's a test of how this team responds when the spotlight burns brightest. The Lions haven't lost 2 straight games in 3 years, not once under Dan Campbell since they started their rise. And now, staring down a 5-1 Tampa Bay team with Baker Mayfield making plays and no Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, Detroit's got to prove it can get off the mat. Because if they don't, they could fall to 4-3 heading into their bye, a dangerous place to be in a loaded NFC. And maybe the biggest storyline isn't even the scoreboard, but the tone coming from Allen Park afterward. Dan Campbell made comments about Brian Branch that raised some eyebrows. He praised the rookie's talent, sure, but also warned that won't be tolerated here. A clear message: clean it up or you'll find yourself on the outside looking in. It wasn't harsh, but it was honest. Accountability runs deep in this locker room, and Branch has the talent to bounce back. But Campbell's words make it clear: the standard doesn't bend, not even for the most gifted players. So here's the question, Lions fans, as this team heads home, bruised but not broken, and prepares for a must-win showdown, what do you think? Is this just a wake-up call on the road to something greater, or the first real crack in the armor of a team that thought it had turned the corner? Because now it's about response, not excuses, not frustration, but how this team channels that sting into something stronger. The great teams, the ones that make real playoff noise, use games like this as fuel. They don't sulk, they evolve. The Lions have to rediscover that fire that defined them last year, the gritty, relentless identity that made every opponent feel uncomfortable for 4 straight quarters. That edge has been missing lately, especially on defense. Look at what's changed since last season. Detroit's third down defense, once one of the league's best, has slipped into mediocrity. Their red zone unit, which used to thrive on tight coverage and aggressive play calling, is now giving up points in bunches. That's not just a schematic issue. That's about discipline and execution. When the Lions had teams pinned inside the 20 last year, you could feel the pressure coming. Now, it feels like the pressure's gone. Mahomes, Burrow, even Mayfield, quarterbacks like that will exploit every inch of that weakness if you don't tighten it up. And the defensive front? It's Hutchinson versus the world right now. You can see it every snap. The double teams, the chips, the slide protection. Offenses are daring someone else to beat them, and so far, no one has stepped up. That can't continue if Detroit wants to compete in January. The interior line has been a ghost, 0 sacks in 6 games from the tackles. 0. That's not just bad luck. That's an identity crisis. This defense was built to collapse the pocket, to make quarterbacks uncomfortable from every angle. Instead, opposing passers are stepping up and delivering clean throws. You can't win in this league like that. Dan Campbell knows it, Aaron Glenn knows it, and every fan watching knows it too. This team needs another pass rusher. It's not about replacing Hutchinson. It's about supporting him. Every time Hutch breaks through, there's no one there to capitalize. Even when he forces a fumble, like against Kansas City, nobody's in position to recover. Those moments decide playoff games. Campbell keeps saying, you have to be ready when your moment comes. Right now, too many guys aren't. But let's not forget the bigger picture. The Lions are 5-1, or maybe 4-2 depending on how the next one goes, still very much in control of their season. One ugly Sunday doesn't erase what they've built. In fact, it's moments like this that reveal what kind of foundation they truly have. This isn't the old Lions, the ones that would crumble after one bad game. This team has leadership, accountability, and a head coach who refuses to let them play victim. Campbell doesn't tolerate excuses, not from the refs, not from injuries, not from anyone. That's what makes his comments about Brian Branch so interesting. It's not punishment, it's a challenge. A message to every player in that locker room that the standard is the standard. You either meet it, or you make room for someone who will. And speaking of accountability, it's not just on the defense. The offense, even though Goff played a clean game, looked too conservative at times. The play action that usually defines Ben Johnson's creativity was almost invisible. The first drive was a masterpiece of clock control, 10 minutes long, methodical, smart, but it ended with a field goal instead of a touchdown. That's a pattern that can't continue. You can't go toe-to-toe with the league's best if you're settling for 3s instead of 7s. Amon-Ra St. Brown will bounce back. He always does, but that dropped 4th down pass was symbolic. It was the kind of play that separates a good day from a bad one. Nobody's perfect, and St. Brown's earned enough trust to shake it off. But moments like that linger when you're fighting for home field advantage in December. Now, the Lions return to Ford Field, and that might be exactly what they need. The crowd, the energy, the dome, all of it matters. The home field advantage has become real in Detroit. You can feel it every time the defense lines up on 3rd down and the building starts to rumble. That environment could reignite something in this group. They'll need it against Tampa Bay, Because make no mistake, that team's better than people think. Mayfield's playing with confidence, and even with injuries to their wide receivers, they're converting impossible third downs and making plays out of nothing. That's what winners do, and that's what Detroit has to get back to doing. This next stretch defines who the 2025 Lions really are. Do they shake off a tough road loss and remind everyone why they were considered NFC contenders? Or do the cracks widen, exposing deeper issues that were hiding behind wins? The answers are coming fast, and they'll come on their home turf. Because when this team is locked in, when Hutchinson's firing, Goff's sharp, and the crowd's roaring, they can beat anyone. But when they lose focus, when they let frustration creep in, it looks like Arrowhead all over again. So now it's your turn, Lions fans. What do you think? Was this loss just a wake-up call Detroit needed to refocus before the stretch run? Or are you seeing something more concerning behind the numbers? Drop your thoughts below, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep the conversation going. We've got a lot more to break down, and I'll see you in the next video. It's already on your screen right now. And here's the thing, this isn't panic time. Not even close. But it is gut check time. Because teams that want to be great don't just respond to losses, they evolve because of them. The Detroit Lions have spent the last 3 seasons building an identity, grit, discipline, and belief. And this moment is exactly where that identity gets tested. You don't measure a franchise's growth when everything's rolling your way. You measure it when things start slipping, when confidence turns to doubt, when fans start asking, what happened to our team? That's what this next game is about, rediscovering who they are. This roster is too talented,